So, good afternoon, everyone. With the permission of the chair, may I declare today's value-added session open? Thank you, chair. So today's topic for presentation by Dr. Pallavi ma'am is economy, craft, technology, artifacts of Indus Valley civilization, trade relation with other civilization. What we expect from today's lecture to know is what was the currency or barter system during Indus Valley civilization, what was the state of technology with special reference to metallurgy during the phase of Indus Valley civilization? And third thing we want to know and keen to know will be what were the means of trade with other civilization during the period of Indus Valley civilization. So now, without wasting any further time, may I, with the permission of the chair, request Dr. Pallavi to quench our thirst for knowledge with the expertise she has on the topic. With the permission of chair, may I request Dr. Pallavi to do so? Thank you, Chair. Over to you, Dr. Pallavi, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Danish sir. In the series of this value-added courses, today we will discuss about the economy of Harappan civilization. And when we talked about the economy of Harappan civilization, the main thing about the economy is the craft and technique. Basically, it's about the trade, what we trade concluded in the economy. Harappan craft and techniques. So the earliest writings, which the archaeologist says that they tended to contrast the plainness of Harappan artifacts with the opulence of Egyptian and Mesopotamian counterparts. They says that they are not like the Egyptians craft and techniques and Mesopotamian also. Nowadays the nowadays the technological sophistication and the beauty of some of the Harappan artifacts are recognized. So there is a great variety of standardized mass produced craft items at Harappan sites. The artifacts are far greater in quantity and range and show greater technical fineness than those found in earlier cultural phase. While some sites specialized in the production of a single or a few items, others such as Hadappa manufactured a wide range of goods. Craft activity of Harappan civilization was often localized in a certain part of the settlement. And when we talked about the ceramics, including all items, in that involving the heating of clay, such as in this we says that bricks, terracotta, and fines. When we says the word fines, fines means a fine tin glazed pottery. In It means the fine tin glazed anything included in pottery or some toy also. In Mesopotamia, we find the toy in blue color that are fine tin glazed, and they says that they are made up of fines. In Harappan, there was pottery reflect efficient mass production. Pottery kilns were found at Mohenjo-daro, Harappa, Nosharo, and Chahodaro. The pots were fired in funnel-shaped, updraft closed kilns. Although open firing kilns may also have been used, there is a great variety of pottery, including black on red, gray, buffed pottery, and black and red wares also included in them. Most of the pots were wheel turned, okay, and both fine and coarse fabric occur, and their thickness varies. The typical Harappan pottery is a fine, sturdy, wheel made ware, and with a bright red slip decorated with painted black designs. Polychrome painting is rare. The red color for the slip was made from the red ochre that made up from the chemical reaction of iron and iron oxide. And we in local language we called it a geru. While black was made by combining dark reddish brown iron oxide with black manganese. Uh, Distinctive shape include the dish on stand, vase with S profile, small vessel with knobbed decoration, large slender-footed bowl, cylindrical perforated jars also found, and goblet with pointed foot. The decorative patterns range from simple horizontal lines to geometric patterns and pictorial motifs. Some of the designs, such as fish scales, pipe people leaves and intersecting circles have their roots in early Harappan phase. Figures are rare, but they are crude. At the earliest level of Mohenjo-daro, a burnished grey ware with a dark purplish shade, slip and vitreous glaze may represent one of the earliest example of glazing in the world. Although there is a certain level of uniformity in pottery styles we found and techniques across the Harappan culture zone, there are also difference between regions. When we the inferences can be made about the functions of some of the Harappan pots. The large jars may have been used to store grain or water, and more elaborately painted pots may have had a ceremonial use or may have belonged to rich people. Some vessels may have been used as glasses to drink water or other beverages also. The function of the perforated jars is not clear, but they might be used as a diffuser in as we in today's nowadays we used. The one archaeologist suggestions is that they may have been wrapped in cloth and used for brewing fermented alcoholic beverages. Another possibility is that they may have had a ceremonial or ritualistic use, as I said earlier. Shallow vowels probably held cooked food, uh, and flatter dishes were used as plates. Cooking pots of various sizes have been found also, and most of them, pots have a red or black slipped rim and a rounded bottom. The lower part of the pot is often strengthened by a thick slurry or clay mixed with ground pottery or chaff. The rim of the cooking pots are strong and project outwards to help pick them up or move them around. Some of the forms and features of the pots used by Harappans can be seen in traditional kitchens, even today also. Apart from the ceramic vessels, the Harappan also made and used metal ones, as we find the evidences. Harappan sites have yielded a profusion of terracottas. There are figurines of animals such as bulls, buffaloes, monkeys, dogs. There are toy carts also with solid wheels. Human figurines included, when we talked about the human figurines, it included male figurines and more numerous female figurines or various types. There are different kinds of female figurines. When we talked about the kinds of female figurines, we talked about the different variety of fashions they wear in their figurines and the body type. In anatomically, we talked about the body type. The Harappan craft persons also made terracotta bangles also, and terracotta masks have been also found at Mohenjo-daro. It's very small in size, but it is existed, and Harappa also. Uh, Faience is a paste made out of crushed quartz and colored with various minerals. As we previously told about faience, what is faience? The Harappans made finds, bangles, rings, pendants, miniature vessel, and figurines all included. And in those figurines, we find the monkeys and squirrels also. Another distinctive Harappan craft was the making of hard, high-fired bangles, known as stoneware bangles. These were highly burnished red or gray black, with a standard inner diameter of 5.56 meter to 6 centimeter, and usually had tiny letters written on them. Stoneworks was another important craft, and when we reference was made earlier to the stone masonry and fine polished pillars at Dholavira. More visible at all Harappan sites was the were the mass produced charred blades made by the crested guided ridge technique. Some of these may have been used as knives for domestic use, and other as sickles. Harappan stone quarries have been identified in the Rohri Hills of Sindh, and some of the stone blades may have been obtained from the contemporary hunter-gatherer communities. The fact that stone flakes and core occur in many houses at Mohenjo-daro suggests that at least some of the tools were made by people in their homes. The Harappan civilization is marked by a large number of objects. Apart from the making artifacts out of pure copper, Harappan craft persons alloyed copper with arsenic, tin, or nickel. These are the alloyed that they made up with the copper. Copper and bronze artifacts included vessels, spears, knives, short swords, arrowheads, axes, fish hooks, needles, mirrors, rings, and bangles also. The axes were flat without a shaft hole. There is no shaft, and were probably hefted in a split and bound handle. The number of pure copper artifacts was far greater than alloyed bronze ones, and usually tools like knives, axes, and chisels, which needed a hardened edges, were alloys increased over time. For instance, at Mohenjo-daro, bronze tools increased from around 6% to 23%, from the lower to the higher levels. The small proportion of alloyed objects compared to those of pure copper may suggest cultural preference rather than technological backwardness. 16 copper furnaces were found at Harappa, and copper workshop were found at Lothal. A large number of copper oxide was discovered in a brick-lined pit at Mohenjo-daro also. That metal objects were considered precious is clear from the fact that they were buried in hoards for safekeeping by their owners. Uh, One hoard found at Harappa consisted of a large cooking pot. We find the consider large cooking pot with a bronze cover. Inside were several types of bowl also. Some of the objects were unused, other than used and worn. Uh, when we talked about jewelry or something like anklets and jewelry, they are beautifully worked gold, and the Harappans beautifully worked in gold and silver jewelry, and they made including necklaces, bracelets, brooches, pendants, and earrings have been found at Harappan sites. A hoard of jewelry made of gold, silver, and semi-precious stones was found at the small village site of Alhadino. The Harappans used silver to emboss conch shells and make the vessels all from them also. Lead was used to make plumb bobs and in copper casting. It may be noted that two metal objects found at Lothal contain around 40% and 66% iron. The latter can be called an iron object. What this suggests is that Hadappans, at least those around from the Gujarat area, may have had some familiarity with iron smelting also. And seal making was another important craft in Harappan civilization, and most of the seals are square or in rectangular shape. The average size of the square seals is about 2.54 centimeter, but there are large ones, little over 6.35 centimeter, and some have a perforated bows at the back for handling and suspension. A few cylindrical and round seals have also been found. Uh, Most of the seals are made up of statite, but there are a few silver, fines, and calcite ones as well. Two fine silver seals with unicorn motif, a unicorn made on the seals, were discovered at Mohenjo-daro, and some copper and soapstone ones were found at Lothal. To make the stone seals, the stone was swayed and shaped with knives and then carved and using fine chisel and drills. The seal was coated with an alkali and heated, giving it a white lustrous surface. The carbon is in intaglio, and that is it is a sunken engraving with the impression appearing in the relief. Motifs included the animals like elephant, tiger, antelope, crocodile, hare, humped bull, buffalo, rhinoceros, and one horned mythical animal referred to as a unicorn. There is often a small feeding through or stand in front of the animal. There are also composite animals, human figures, and plants. Most of the seals have a short inscription. Some rectangular seals have writing, but no motifs found on it. Bead making factories with tools, furnaces, and beads in various stages of preparations have been found at Chaundarado and Lothal. At Beksara in Gujarat, there is a evidence of production of artifacts of shell, fines, and beads of semi-precious stones like agate, carnelian, amazonite, lapis lazuli, and statite. Clay-lined sloes varying from around zero point 0.30 to 1 meter in diameter and 0.15 to 30 meter in depth uh, were used to store semi-precious stones. The bead making tradition in Gujarat today give us clues on how the Harappan craft people may have made their beads. And in the series of this beads making, uh, we talked about the beads and bracelets. So in this series, we see that beads, bracelet, and the other decorative inlay work of shell shows the existence of craft persons skilled in shell working. Bangles are often made from conch shell, and from Chahundaro and Balakot were very important center of shell work. Further evidence of side specialization comes from Gujarat. An intensive surface survey and excavation at Nageshwar in Jamnagar district have shown that this site was exclusively devoted to shell working and specialized in making bangles. From evidence of shell working that also comes from Kunsi, Dholavira, Rangpur, Lothal, Nagwada, and Bagasra. This craft was clearly very important in the Gujarat region of Harappan culture zone. Bone working was another specialized craft in the Harappan civilization, and from bones they made beads, owls, and pins were also made from the bones. There are a few examples of ivory carving we see in the Harappan civilization. The evidences of some forms of combs, carved cylinders, small sticks, pins, gamesmen, and a carved plague also. It can be inferred from the available evidence that Harappans made cotton and woolen textiles also, or they may worked in the cotton or woolen textiles. The terracotta figurines wearing clothes, that is a shawl, skirt, etc., reflect the kind of clothes people wore in the Harappan civilization. And Mesopotamian text mention uh, cotton as one of the imports from Meluha, an area which included the Indus Valley uh, in the in the Indus Valley in included in the area of Indus Valley civilization. Traces of cotton clothes were found at Mohenjo-daro, preserved over the centuries due to their being in contact with a corroding silver jar. Several examples of cotton thread and clothes were identified on copper tools. At Harappa, cotton threads were found wrapped around the handle of a small copper mirror in a burial, and also around the handle of a curved copper razor. Recent excavations at Harappa uh, have given evidence of woven textile impressions on the inside of a fine vessel. The uniform thickness and uniformity of the weave suggests that use of spinning wheels at that time existed, and various kind of spindle wheels for spinning thread have been found at Harappan sites. Weaving may have been a cottage industry practiced in villages and also to some extent in the cities. Impressions on clay floors and fired clay lumps suggest traditions of making basket mats out of reeds and grasses. The Harappan craft display an impressive level of standardization. uh, and Historian Kinoyer has suggested that state control may have been responsible for the high level of standardization in craft that were considered to have a value in maintaining the socio-economic and ritual order, and which use non-local raw materials and highly complex technologies. For example, the making of seals, stoneware, bangles, and stoneware also. Leaving aside pottery and bricks, craft using local materials and simple technologies tend to show greater variation, and standardization extended to units of weight and measure. The cubical weights made of chert, chalcedony, black stone, etc., and they have been found at all excavated sites, and their accuracy all over Harappan cultural zone is remarkable. The system is in binary in the smaller weights, and the ratio is 1 is to 2 is to 8 is to 16 is to 32 is to 64, and the decimal in the higher weights with the ratio of 160, 200, and 320 and 640. The largest weight found at Mohenjo-daro weighs 10.865 gram. A shell scale was found at Mohenjo-daro, and an ivory scale at Lothal also. A shell object found in Saurashtra is probably used to measure angles also. What is explanation of the high level of standardization in craft, such as pottery making and brick making? And does it imply centralized control by merchants or rulers? Some elements of central direction is suggested, but its nature and degree are far from certain. If not direct, it may have taken the indirect form of facilitating and controlling the flow of at least some of the raw materials and finished goods. On the other hand, the level of standardization could also indicate the fanning out of hereditary craft specialists over large areas or a well-developed network of internal trade. It is possible that craft persons and traders may have been organized in the corporate groups similar to guilds in ancient time, but in later time, but there is no proof of this. And for further, when we talked about uh, the weights and measures, then further we talked about the networks of trade. The what is the trade system of Harappan civilization? See, the discovery of the Harappan civilization generated a great deal of interest, and in context of Harappan and Mesopotamian trade links. This is because before the advent of radiocarbon dating, these links gave vital clues for dating the Harappan culture, and also due to the prevailing interest in cross cultural comparisons. Over the years, however, many scholars have come to the conclusion that Harappan Mesopotamian trade may not have been as substantial as earlier held. Other areas such as Persian Gulf have been identified as important zones of uh, interaction. As far as the long distance trade of the Hadappans is concerned, however, it is clear that trade networks within the Harappan culture zone and those linking the culture with other areas in the subcontinent were extremely significant. They are crucial for understanding the structure of the Harappan civilization as well as its striking level of cultural homogeneity. The importance of such trade is clear from the very wide range of raw materials and finished goods that found their way to different parts of the vast Harappan culture zone. This was this was an age before the advent of coinage and the a vibrant trade of the Hadappans was based on barter. And in this, one of the important aspect of Harappan trade is the identification of the sources of major raw materials used by the Hadappans. The best way of doing this is to scientifically analyze the artifacts and to compare the result with the raw materials from various possible sources. Unfortunately, there are not enough studies of this kind so far. Another method is to plot the location of the known resources of various raw materials, especially those closest to the Harappan culture zone. Proof that these were being used in protohistoric times of course give clinching evidence. Unfortunately, this is not usually available, and the earliest evidence of the exploitation of these resources is often contained in 18th or 19th century textual references. In spite of its limitations, this kind of exercise is useful in helping identify probable sources of raw materials used by the Hadappans. And when we talked about the raw materials, uh, we it's necessary and it's obvious that we have to discuss about the factory sites also. The discovery of factory sites in the limestone hills of Sukkur and Rohiri indicates that church blades were mass produced here and sent to various Harappan settlements in Sindh. The Khetri deposits of Rajasthan must have been an important source of copper, and lead and zinc probably also came from Rajasthan. tin is available in the Tosam area of modern Haryana, but other possible sources are Afghanistan and Central Asia. Gold may have come from Kolar fields of Karnataka that existed in the contemporary time also, where it may have been obtained via trade from the Neolithic people who lived there at that time. These Neolithic herders may also have been exporters of cattle, and when we gold could also have been painted from the sands of the upper Indus, and most varieties of semi-precious stone used for bead manufacture came from Gujarat. The exception is lapis lazuli, which was probably obtained from Afghanistan. Although it's also occur in the Chagai Hills in Baluchistan. But we found a large number of lapis lazuli came from the Afghanistan, where we find some hoards and some factory sites. Traders must have also been engaged in a brisk trade in grain and other food product that transporting these between villages and cities. Two-wheeled carts were an important mode of transport for people and goods, and we found the bronze and terracotta models of carts have also been found at various sites. And we found some fine disc beads when we talked about the statite. We found some fine disc beads which made up from the statite paste, and they've discovered from the Peekli Hall, and have been obtained from the Hadappans. And now the we when we talked about the cards, we found the terracotta or toy cards. We didn't find any card, any actual functional card survive at Harappan sites, but their tracks have been found at several sites, indicating spans roughly similar to those which used nowadays. Traders must have also transported their merchandise across long distance in caravans of pack animals, such as pack animals are the animals which used for the human chores. In them, we concluded oxen, sheep, goats, and donkeys. Towards the end of the mature Harappan phase, there is evidence of the use of camel also. The use of horse seems to have been very minimal, and boats are depicted on seals and molded tablets, and clay models have been found at Harappa and Lothal. Riverboats had cabins and ladders leading to the roof and a high seated platform on the stern for navigation. Seafaring boats had a sharp keel, pointed prow, high flat stern, and mast and ropes for sails also. And other than the cart and the boats, the other important factor which functioned in the economy as a trade, as a characteristic of trade, is the several routes of trade and communication that connected the various parts of the Harappan culture zone. And these are the parts. The parts are Baluchistan, Sindh, Rajasthan, Cholistan, Punjab, and Gujarat, and the Upper Doab also. These routes can be reconstructed by the studying the geographical landscape, settlements, patterns, and distribution of raw materials and finished products also. Uh, the historian Lahiri points out that major trade routes connected the flowing areas, Sindh and South Baluchistan, coastal Sindh and Upper Sindh, and the central Indus Plain and Rajasthan, the regions lying to the north of the Indus and Harappa, the Sindh and East Punjab, East Punjab and Rajasthan, and Sindh and Gujarat. Some of the routes were already well defined in the early Harappan phase. Example, the Baluchistan Sindh route via the Kartar Mountains, and the route from the East Punjab and Rajasthan via the Cholistan track. The route connecting North Afghanistan, mm, the Gomal Plain, and Multan with a feeder route going to Takshila Valley also continued to be important. Now, certain routes that were being used in the earlier period became more important in the mature Harappan phase. And in these routes, the routes within Sindh, between Sindh and Central Indus Plains, and between Sindh and Baluchistan via Kutch and Kathiawar, it is likely that the Indus saw a certain amount of riverine traffic. There was also a coastal route linking the Gujarat sites such as Lothal and Dholavira to the sites such as Sutka Gandor on the Makran coast. The location of the some of the important sites can in fact be explained in relation to the trade routes of the time. For instance, Mohenjo-daro lay in the intersection of the water route of the Indus and uh, east-west land route that linked the Quetta Valley and Bolan River to Kodiji and Western Nara. The main sources of information on long distance trade include a number of Harappan and Harappan related or Harappan types similar to the Harappan artifacts found at sites outside the subcontinent, and foreign objects found at Harappan sites that proves as an informative evidence to the trade in to the existence of trade in Harappan civilization. And these are supplemented by textual sources also in the case of Indus and Mesopotamia trade. And a number of Harappan related objects have been found in South Turkmenistan at sites such as Altendipi, Namazga, and Khapuz. These include ivory dies, two types of metal objects, an spearhead and a ladle, and epithelic terracotta, perforated ware, a segmented bead, and a silver seal. The most definite evidences that come from the Alatin Tepe is the form of a rectangular Harappan seal, which bearing the Harappan script. The sites in Iran which have yielded Harappan and Harappan related artifacts are Hisar, Shah Tepe, Kale Nisar, Susha, uh, Tepe Yaya, Jalalabad, and Marlik. The main evidence consists of seals and carnelian beads. Both the etched and long barrel cylinder types have been founded here. The most important evidence of trade with Afghanistan came from an isolated Harappan trading outpost at Shortogai. Many years ago, in the excavation, a round seal with a short horned bull motif and Harappan writing script was found at Falaka in Persian Gulf also. In recent years, there has been a substantial increase in the evidence of Harappan trade, contact with the Persian Gulf, Harappan and Harappan related artifacts, including a piece of ivory, a ling shaped object, a circular mirror, and seals with Harappan uh, motifs in or and writing, have been found at Rasal Kala on the island of Bahrain. Excavations near Hamad in Bahrain yielded a typical Harappan seal and carnelian beads in burials also. A seal with bull motif and Harappan script was on there, found at the site of Hajjar. And from Falaka, apart from the Persian Gulf seal, which we mentioned earlier, there was a flat and round seal with the Harappan script also existed. The archaeologists discovered also jar fragments with Harappan writings have been found at many sites in the Persian Gulf, and these were probably containers used to transport perishable goods from the Harappan culture zone to this region. The Harappans was also trading with the Oman Peninsula, and etched carnelian bead of the Harappan types was discovered at Umanar. There are similarities between certain other types of objects found at this site. Square statite seal, fragments of some pottery, some carnelian beads, cubical stone weight, etc. And other artifacts also existed there. Massar, an excavated copper smelting site, has yielded evidence. For example, the pottery decoration and motifs on a seal also discovered there, and that suggests that Harappan influence existed at Massar. The major imports from Oman may have included chlorite vessels, shell, and perhaps mother of pearl. Copper has been mentioned as another Omani exports to the Hadappans, but it is unlikely as the metal was available closer in Rajasthan for also. As for Hadappan exports to Oman, the items that survive in the archaeological record include beads, chert, weight, and ivory objects. There is literally as well as archaeological evidence for Harappan trade with Mesopotamia. Mesopotamian records of the time of King Sargon, which ruled from 2300 around circa 2300 to 2200 BC, refers to ships from the land of Dilmun, Magan, and Melha that tied along the way of capital city, uh, Akkad. Dilmun can be we can identify Dilmun with Bahrain and Magan with Makran coast and Oman also. Melha have been generic terms for areas lying to the east of Mesopotamia, including the Indus Valley, or it may refer specifically to the Indus Valley. The archaeological evidence for Harappan Mesopotamian trade consists mainly of a few Harappan or Harappan related seals and carnelian beads at Mesopotamian sites such as Kish, Lagash, Nippur, and Ur, the most famous sites from the Harappan trade in context of Harappan trade with the other parts of the other parts of the world. Carnelian beads, both the edged type and the long barreled cylinder type, were found and were also found in the royal graves at Ur. And certain motifs, such as the bull on Mesopotamian seals, have been cited as reflected Harappan influence. The cylinder seals, which are common in West Asia with Harappan type, motifs, Harappan type of motifs, and suggest interaction between merchants of these two areas. The absence of Mesopotamian seals and ceilings in the Harappan context suggests that Mesopotamian traders were not directly involved in Harappan Mesopotamian trade interactions. The carnelian beads were clearly an important Harappan export to West Asia. And in the trade, the textile and conch shell objects were the other possible exports in in the exchange of Harappans to the other world. The ivory and the objects made from the ivory may have been exported by the Harappans to Afghanistan, Turkmenistan, and perhaps the Persian Gulf. Mesopotamian texts mention the following items that import from Meluha, and that is lapis lazuli, carnelian, gold, silver, copper, ebony, ivory, tortoise shell, a chicken-like bird, something a small bird, and dog, cat, monkey. These are the items that Mesopotamians imports from Meluha, and as I previously told, that Meluha is the part of Harappan civilization at that time, and Mesopotamia's general export that and Mesopotamia's general export included that the items that exported from Mesopotamia is fish, grain, raw wool, woolen garments, and silver. And the export and important items of Mesopotamian are important when we talked about the Harappan civilization, because these are the items, and they proved as an evidence of trade from Mesopotamia to the other world. And when we says about the Mesopotamia and the other world is included the Harappan civilization also. So it is possible that wool and silver found their way to Meluha, but there is no archaeological proof of this. There are two very different assessment of Harappan Mesopotamian trade, and in the highlights the importance of this trade, especially the trade in lapis lazuli, and even argues that its decline was a reason for the decline of the Harappan civilization. Not withstanding the long list of items mentioned in text, the fact remains that there are very few Harappan artifacts found in Mesopotamia, and even fewer Mesopotamian artifacts found at Harappan sites. A few Mesopotamian type stone weights have been reported from Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, and three motifs found on some Harappan seals are seen by some scholars as reflected Mesopotamian influence. The first is the world design, a man grappling with two animals, second, and the third is gate post motifs. The evidence as a whole is not very substantial. The archaeologists Chakravarti and Schaffer argue that Harappan trade with Mesopotamia was not direct, extensive, or in instance intensive level. This trade journal seems to have been particularly important for the development or sustenance of the Harappan civilization. Among the Harappan imports via long distance trade, lapis lazuli was probably an important from Afghanistan, or it could been obtained closer from the Chagai hills of Baluchistan. Jade must have come from Turkmenistan, and tin may have been obtained from Fargana, the eastern Kazakhstan in Central Asia. And the carved chloride and green cyst vessels were a popular item of trade in West Asia and Persian Gulf, and a few fragments have been found at Mohenjo-daro also. These may have been these may have been imported from southern Iran or from Baluchistan. A very few West Asian artifacts have been found in Harappan context, and in this a seal of the Persian Gulf type was found at Lothal as a surface finding. A lapis lazuli weed from Mohenjo-daro and a pendant with lapis lazuli inlay found at symmetry H levels at Harappa were possibly import from West Asia. Slender seal, as mentioned earlier, slender seals were common in West Asia, with Indian motifs are found at Kalibangan. Harappan objects in Mesopotamia can be dated from early dynastic third A period, and it is 2600 to 2500 around BC, to the Isin Larsa period, that is 2000 to 1900 BC in the Mesopotamian sequence, which corresponds to the entire span of the mature Harappan phase. The findings from the other parts of the West Asia also belong roughly to this period. However, the discovery of a Harappan seal at the site of Nippur in a 14th century BC context suggests that Harappans contact with Mesopotamia may have continued, although in a diminished form, into the late Harappan phase. The continuation of some amount of trade with Persian Gulf region is suggested by two Harappan seals found at Falaka in 14th century BC uh, context, and a late Harappan seal found at Beth Dwarka. The latter has Harappan writing and a three-headed animal motif similar to that found on certain Persian Gulf seals. The importance of overland routes, or the trade routes from the Harappan civilization through Afghanistan is evident from the location of Harappan sites near each of the passes and routes that lead through Baluchistan into Afghanistan. The Patami Dam is near the Mula Pass, and Nosharo near the Bolan Pass. Dabarkot in the Gomal Valley, and Gumla and Hathal in the Derazat along the route via the Gomal Pass. The Gomal route seems to have been the most important, and the two, when we talked about the routes in this series, the two main overland routes connected the Harappan civilization with West Asia. The northern one passed through northern Afghanistan, north Iran, Turkmenistan, and Mesopotamia, crossing sites such as Shotogai, Tepe Hisar, Shah Tepe, and Kish. Southern route passed through Tepe Yaya, Jalalabad, Kale, Nisar, Shusha, and Ur. The maritime route to the Mesopotamia may also have been used. It is likely that sites such as Sutka Gandor, Balakot, and Dabarkot, the later two may have that time been located at the coast instead of some distance away, were important points along this route. So, Lothal is 10 kilometer away from the Gulf of Cambay, and the Kunsi site is 4 kilometer from the coast of Fulki River. Dholavira in the run of Kaksh existed, and the site along the coast of the Kaksh no doubt played an important role in maritime trade. The argument that quantum of Harappan long distance trade was not great in persuasive. Unlike the resource poor area of Mesopotamia, the Harappan culture zone was rich in a variety of natural resources. So, the food requirement and the most of the raw materials required by the Harappan craft persons could have been made by resources available within the zone, within that particular cultural zone. The diverse, well developed craft traditions meant that most of the finished goods required by the Hadappans were likewise available from within this area. A few raw materials and products were obtained from other parts of the subcontinent and from areas such as Afghanistan and Central Asia. Very few essential items had to be imported from distant places, and Harappan trade must have involved highly organized merchant groups as well as nomadic peddlers in the mountainous this activity is a matter of debate, and this is the Harappan trade, and this is the economy of Harappa that we talked about. And in this next series, we talked about the declining theory of Harappans. We proceed about the declining theory of Harappans. So hope you understand with the you understand the economy of the Harappan civilization and how it evolved and diminishes within the time period and within the timeline. Okay, next I would like to I would like to Dr. Khwajadani sir, please concluded this lecture.
Thank you, Dr. Pallavi, for enlightening us with your tremendous knowledge and expertise you have on this topic. Thank you very much. And with the permission of the chair, may I declare the question and answer session open for this session of today? Thank you to the chair. Thank you. So, first question. Uh, Please, viewers, type your question on the chat box so that we can post it to Dr. Pallavi. Any questions, anyone? So I believe that there's no one to ask question. So with this, I would like to conclude that Dr. Pallavi has covered the topic ecastology, ontologically, and epistemologically, which is a broad spectrum. And economically, this topic was also very well taken care of, especially with the part of the trade system and the metallurgy systems that prevailed in the Indus Valley civilization. How it was connected with the other civilization as well was very well covered. Thank you, Dr. Pallavi. And with the permission of the chair, may I declare this session for today open, to take close. Thank you. With this, we come to end of today's presentation. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.